We begin now with the latest on Tropical Storm Isaac and the Republican convention. The storm is expected to become a hurricane later today, and it could strengthen to a Category 2 by tomorrow before hitting land late Tuesday along the Gulf Coast. The tracks vary right now. It could land anywhere from the Florida Panhandle to New Orleans. It should pass a good 200 miles west of Tampa, but Republican officials are taking no chances. They have postponed the first night of convention activities, and for more on that, let's go to ABC's John Carl in the convention hall. And John, when they made this announcement last night, the officials said they can get everything they need to get done in 3 days.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. The speeches will be shorter. A few people may miss their mark. But, George, they say they had absolutely no choice. Even though that hurricane is passing to the west, they think we could see winds of 70 miles an hour here, torrential rain, possible flooding. The big issue here is that some of the delegates are staying an hour away on the coast, and they were concerned about loading them up on buses, bringing them here. They thought that it might have been too much of an issue, safety issue. It may be, George, like one of those school days, you know, where they call a snow day, and then the storm ended up not being as much, but they really didn't think they had a choice. One other thing, George, every delegate gets one of these red umbrellas, the official Republican umbrella. One concern is, though, technically right now they're not allowed in the convention hall, but we got ours in.
Good thing you got in. And I guess the other concern, though, is going to be that even if things get started again on Tuesday, all the coverage of the hurricane will overwhelm their effort to get their message out.
That's exactly right. This is the one time when the Republican Party has a chance to have the attention of the entire country to their message. Right now, they'll be competing with a hurricane for that attention. And as you remember, the exact same thing happened 4 years ago with Hurricane Gustav, which hit during the first day of the Republican convention 4 years ago.
So I know you've been talking to a lot of officials and delegates down there. What's the number one thing they think they need to do to get out of this convention?
Well, the number one thing they have to do is establish Mitt Romney as the problem solver. That's what you're going to be hearing over and over again, as the person who has the ability to solve America's problems, to succeed where Barack Obama has failed.
Okay, John Carl, thanks very much. Let's get more now from Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, the chair of the Republican Convention's Platform Committee, and by Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, the chair of the Democratic Convention. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And Governor McDonnell, let me begin with you. You heard John Carl on the weather right there. How concerned are you that this is going to really disrupt the convention?
Well, obviously, these unplanned events are things that just have to be dealt with, and we're just going to have to be more productive. We'll have to do in 3 days what the Democrats do in 4. It's a concern for the reasons that you mentioned at the top of the show, George, competing with a major weather event. But I think that the independent voters are going to start tuning in now, are going to want to see Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan speak. So I think we'll still get a fair amount of attention, and the message will be good. You
also got a big surprise this morning from another independent, the former Republican governor of Florida, Charlie Crist, in the Tampa Bay Times this morning endorsing President Obama for re-election. He had some kind words for President Obama, but also some tough words for the Republican Party. I want to read some of them right now. He says, an element of their party has pitched so far to the extreme right on issues important to women, immigrants, seniors, and students that they've proven incapable of governing for the people. Look no further than the inclusion of the Aiken Amendment in the Republican Party platform, which bans abortion even for rape victims. Of course, he's referring to Congressman Todd Aiken, your Senate candidate from Missouri right now. You're the chair of the Platform Committee. You've called it the heart and soul of the Republican Party. So how do you respond to former Governor Crist?
Well, I'd say Governor Crist's endorsements adds one more vote in Florida, and that's it. He's wrong on about every other point. I don't think it's any surprise that the Republican Party is the party that embraces the dignity and sanctity of life. We're a pro-life party. The Democrats are pro-choice. But I tell you that's so far afield. He's wrong on the platform. And really what matters in this race, George, as everybody knows, is how are we going to get the greatest country on earth back to work and out of debt. And you look at Mitt Romney's record on reducing unemployment in Massachusetts. President Obama's increased it, getting a budget balanced. President can't even get a budget passed. And the downgrading of the U.S. credit rating under President Obama's watch the credit rating of Massachusetts went up. So on the things that really matter to voters, George, I think the records are stark, and I think that's why independent voters are have a 10-point margin in favor of Mitt Romney right now.
I want to get Mayor Villaraigosa to respond, but first, you said something there. You said he was wrong on the Republican platform, and I'm not sure how he is wrong. Let's put up the platform right now. It talks about asserting the sanctity of human life, affirming that the unborn child has a fundamental individual right to life which cannot be infringed. We support a human life amendment to the Constitution, endorse legislation to make clear that the 14th Amendment's protections apply to unborn children. There's no exception there in the abortion plank for rape. And even though I know that that's Governor Romney's position, did he try to include that in the platform? And why are there no exceptions in the platform?
George, it's just, you're just reading it wrong. That's been there for 30 years. There are multiple human life amendments that were introduced 20, 30 years ago. Some of them had exceptions, some of them didn't. The real point is we are affirming that we're a pro-life party. The details certainly are left to Congress and ultimately to the states and the people on how they ratify such an amendment, or more importantly, what they do at the state level.
So is the party for a rape exception or not?
Well, the party didn't make any judgment on that. It's a general proposition to say we support human life. The rest of those details are up to the states and the people, respectively, George, and that's simply not covered. It's something up to Congress and the states. We have laws in Virginia that have some of those exceptions, but at this point, with the U.S. Supreme Court having its say, these are not issues that are even material at this point, because the issues are whether or not we have like a ban on partial birth abortion. President opposes that. Mitt Romney supports it. It's whether we have a Born Alive Act. The president is opposed to that. Mitt Romney supports it. So those are the issues, the policy issues, George, at this point that are really relevant. And honestly, here's the last thing. This is one more attempt of the Obama administration to take the focus off jobs, the economy, taxes, spending, debt, and energy. That's what the people of America care about.
A lot there to respond to, Mayor. Take a crack.
Well, first of all, let me say that our hearts and prayers are with the people of Tampa and Florida and the delegates at the convention. And we hope that the storm is not going to be as difficult as it looks right now. And with respect to the plank, I think Governor Chris said it very well. And that is that it is what it is. And maybe it's been there for 30 years, but it's time to take it out. The idea that we would put in our U.S. Constitution an amendment that says that women can't get an abortion, even in the case of incest and rape, is way beyond the mainstream.
Well, you heard him say that's not what it does, according to him.
Well, that's what they say. You put it up there, not me. And the fact that...
Go ahead.
Well, look, it's not just Mr. Aiken's remarks. It's a Republican Party whose platform, who all through the primary season focused on these kinds of issues, on the issue of contraception, which I thought had been dealt with 50 years ago, across the board. And Governor Christ talked about Latinos as well, and immigration, whether it's the self-deportation of 11 million people. No country has ever done that, George. Calling the DREAM Act a handout, walking around with Chris Kobach and calling the Arizona and Alabama laws a model for the nation. These are things that are just way beyond where most voters are at. In fact, when the governor said that Mr. Romney is leading with independent voters, that's just not true.
But as you know, Mayor, the Republicans are carrying one big advantage into this convention. Americans are unhappy right now with President Obama's stewardship of the economy. Mitt Romney does have an advantage there, and his allies are trying to capitalize with this new ad.
The economy, in my opinion, is still the same as it was 4 years ago.
Obama said that he was going to help the middle class, and that's where I am. I'm in the middle class, and instead it has hurt me.
I have not received the hope and change that I believed in 2008.
And we learned this week that median family income dropped more than $4,000 since 2009. Even if that's not all President Obama's fault, as I know you're going to argue, isn't it a huge political problem for the president?
Look, the economy is a challenge for all of us, and the president is trying to address the economy by reducing the deficit by $4 trillion with his Job Act that would create 1 million jobs, keeping teachers and firefighters and police officers on the job, efforts to reward small businesses who are hiring. He's put these proposals across the aisle and asked Republicans to support them, and at every turn they've rejected it. They want to make the economy the issue, and it will be an issue in this campaign, but we're going to make the future the issue as well. We can't just look at today. We've got to look at the policies that will make sure that we're making the right investments going into the future. That means we've got to cut the deficit, but we also got to invest in education. We've got to trim Medicare and the like and entitlements, but we've got to do that in a way that's responsible. We've got to cut and close tax loopholes and raise taxes on the super rich.
And Governor McDonnell, you've heard what President Obama has had to say about Mitt Romney's plan. He's calling it the Romney-Ryan plan and saying it's going to raise taxes on the middle class, harm the middle class.
Well, that's just not correct. George, if I had a record like President Obama, and listen, he's a good man, he's a good family man, he's tried hard, but his policies have just flat failed the American people, especially the middle class. 42 months in a row, over 8% unemployment, a crushing $16 trillion debt that's unsustainable, $5 trillion increase over the last 3 years. Gas prices doubling, the smallest number of new businesses in 30 years. I mean, this is the record, and it's just a record of those policies not working. And so that's why they want to talk about Bain Capital and abortion and tax returns. I think that Mitt Romney's whole message now that you'll hear during the convention is how do we raise up the middle class? He's laid out a significant plan on deficit reduction, on trade, on skills development, on workforce training. These are the things that Americans care about, that they talk to their kids about at the table. And that's why I think he's going to have more appeal to that independent voter. Specific solutions, results-oriented conservative. The rhetoric of hope and change just didn't work for America, George, and that's why I think Mitt Romney will be the next president.
Mayor, this is a very, very close race. You worried the Republicans are going to come out of this convention ahead?
First of all, let me just say something about the Romney-Ryan budget. It would extend the deficit 29 years. We wouldn't solve this deficit problem because while they do make cuts, they also cut taxes and they don't pay for them. And that's why it will have an effect of raising taxes on the middle class. All the economists and the experts have said that. And so the Romney-Ryan plan is not the way to address the deficit. It's not the way to address the economy. It will actually put us backward when you talk about the unemployment rate. So it's just not true. And with respect to the convention, look, conventions give you a bit of a bump sometimes. Sometimes they don't. I expect that they're not going to be able to etch a sketch their way out of this campaign. They're not going to be able to put away all the things they said in the primary and all the things they have in their platform right now. And our job will be to create the stark contrast between who we are, what we want to do for the future, and what they want to do.
Governor McDonnell, you get the last word.
Well, I think it's the vision of Mitt Romney versus the record of Barack Obama. And facts just are stubborn things. And the middle class is hurting. We're in the greatest debt we've ever been in the country. People aren't getting back to work. 23 million people, George, unemployed or underemployed. They feel it. They know it. They're hurting as families. And I think they want results and not rhetoric. That's the message of the Mitt Romney campaign. That's what you're going to hear this week in Tampa.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much.